Hello,
Hello.
how's it going?
Good. It's nice to be able to get in on time, although no one else is here, so.
Yeah, there might be a couple on the old link. I'll grab it from the calendar and paste it. Also gonna copy this calendar onto my Google Cal because I keep just copying the item and it gets updated. There we go.
Hello.
Hello. Good to see folks here.
This is the first seamless Zoom meeting we have in a decade. 10 years of a In-toto project. That's a milestone.
I see in preparation for your 10-year packet, you're trying to look more senior in the community with your beard. It's a
Yeah,
good
it's
Santiago.
I think it's just aging. I'm losing interest in grooming myself, I guess. So I think we do have quorum from steering committee, right? We actually have 4 out of 5. That's pretty good. Uh, should we? We can give it 1 or 2 minutes more, I think. And by the way, there's items on the agenda, but there's always space to add more stuff if you'd like to introduce a topic. I'm going to put it on the Zoom chat as well. Uh, yeah, there's some exciting conversations here, but there's definitely more we could talk about. Uh, also as a reminder, if you add an item and you want to introduce it to make sure that it's please add your name on it so that we don't miss the context or so. See one or two items being added. And I think we can start after this. Uh, did I disconnect or am I still here?
You're still here. I still hear you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I saw you move and I was like, okay, I didn't die.
I was staring so intently at the agenda. Uh,
That happens. That happens. It's a sight to behold. Cool. Well, why don't we go ahead and start then? I see, Raul, you added yourself to the new member introductions. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? Yeah.
So, hi everyone. So I am Rahul. I've been recently contributing to Witness project across the test and doc section. Just catching up here. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. Great to have you around. Certainly, there's a lot of stuff to contribute in Witness. So yeah, I'm glad to see more new faces in the project. Is there anybody else that would like to introduce themselves?
I could reintroduce. I know most of you guys, but I've been away for a bit. I'm James. I'm working at Datadog on supply chain stuff, so working around and with Tough and In-toto again. Glad to be back. And
Yeah,
looking
great
forward
to have you
being
back.
cold again.
I recall you were at control plane, is that right?
I was a Docker for a bit.
Docker,
For
that's
2 years.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my mind is it's not as good as it was. It's great to have you back. Is there anybody else, or should we jump into the new LFX platform stuff? I guess it's all yours, John.
Yeah, so we've got the community meeting now here, which is awesome. We were able to get in before without having to wait, which is nice. No secret email to a group mailing list for the 2FA code. We probably need to get the ITSC members officially onboarded to the project control center. I think Santiago and I are the only two in there. And that has other capabilities. So this is being recorded and should theoretically automatically be uploaded to a new YouTube channel that was created as well. And there will be AI generated transcripts probably. I don't think that that posts automatically. If folks have strong opinions about what features should or should not be enabled, we can have that conversation. It's probably not for me to decide what what we should or shouldn't do. The other thing that they have on there is groups and mailing lists. I think there could be some interesting opportunities to standardize some things. I don't know how widely the current Google groups are being used. I saw a private one. One of the things I thought was most interesting would be the idea of having a security mailing list that could be sent out or could be standardized across the different sub-projects if there are disclosures that need to be done. I don't recall exactly what Witness and Archivista have, but they may point to a Testify Sec email still. So having a list from the for the ITSC at the minimum might be useful. Um, and then the other groups, I'd like to get the Witness and Archivista community call on this as well, so that it can be recorded and shared automatically. The um, the policy stuff, if we continue conversations there, that may be another good thing to have on this calendar. The nice part as well with this dedicated calendar for the In-toto stuff, as we add and remove things on there, it'll show up automatically. The other part is if you can register for the meetings. So if you follow the link and register, it'll send you a meeting invite directly to your email address that you register with. So then if it's updated, it'll send you the update to your email without having to subscribe to the calendar and such. So that's really nice. We often move with holidays, or if it's on the first of the month and everybody forgets the first of the month is on a Friday or something like that. All useful things, I think. Yeah, Santiago?
Yeah, so I would say that I dabbled with it a little bit. It's exciting. I think it's a cool platform. I didn't know it had all of those features. I think we would want to discuss a little bit about how much of it do we want to really use, because I think there's a lot of stuff. I tried to add the TSC and set things up on that regard, but for example, I think a lot of members of the community do not have an LFX account, and that was actually very confusing because you may have a Linux Foundation account, but that's a completely different system with a completely different backend and so on and so forth. The other part that I actually wanted to get that going, but I think we never really got to it. On the Sigstore side, we effectively set all of the roles and all of the working groups using like Pulumi, and it's just managed like as a Git repo. Uh, right now we have it a little bit not as tightly managed here in Toto, but I kind of wonder if there's a way to do an integration with this LFX thing in such a way that if we manage it through LFX, it somehow reflects it as permissions on GitHub, if this makes sense. I'm just a little bit afraid of having like two sources of truth and all of that sort of spring cleaning and stuff that we need to do every now and then. It's a little annoying. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts there.
I can follow up and check with the CNCF folks. They have like a dedicated group of people doing the project management type stuff, and I know they've just done a whole bunch of things with the tag reboots, which has been uh, complicated, evolving. I'm not quite sure the best, but they have their own set of tools around managing a lot of the GitHub permissions and things like that. I don't know how well they work. It's maybe the
Okay.
so, but they are constantly improving those things. So we'll see if they have any guidance or direction.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly impressed. I think it's a really capable platform. I would like to move whatever's useful there. Certainly, some of the working groups and coding them a little bit more officially there would probably give some guidance to people that are. But I also understand making an account on yet another platform, maybe a little bit of a yeah, of a rolling your eyes moment. Either way, I think an action item would be at least the TSC should be on the LFX platform so that we can manage these things, like for example, this meeting and the calendars and the working groups and stuff like that in a more streamlined fashion.
Yeah, and there is an option for when you create meetings, just in case anyone else creates them in the future, to allow anonymous folks or unregistered folks to be able to join. This meeting is set that way. If you want to have a working group or a private ITSC meeting or things like that, you can enable that and then, or not enable the anonymous folks being able to join. And then you will be required to have an LFX account and be in the list of invited people to be able to join that. There's also a host code available with the meetings. So if you have to perform any sort of moderation, you can find that in LFX. It would be really nice if it would automatically know that you created the meeting when you joined. It did not do that for me today. So I put in the host code just to see if it worked, and it does. So I can kick anyone out if I want to, or mute you if I don't like what you're saying. But that won't happen.
Yeah, does anybody else have any thoughts, any reactions about this? Any pushbacks on moving stuff over to LFX?
I would just say, like, the same thing I say to basically my students is, I'm in general going to try to be a late adopter, and like you're showing excitement, and some of it's like, oh, it does all these things I haven't tried yet, and I want to hear like all the bumps and bruises and how you feel about this after you've tried these things for like another, month, and then I'm like, okay, sure.
I think that's fair. I also, I guess I wouldn't call myself a late adopter, but I tend to be a hater of new technologies. So I came in a little bit skeptical about what this platform was capable of, and I think still struggles with like the permissions itself. I couldn't add Jean, for example, myself. But I think it was just a hiccup that I just didn't have yeah, the meeting, the privileges and so on and so forth. But yeah, okay, cool. Moving into I guess more technical, less managerial stuff. John, you're also brought the Palantir stuff.
Yeah, so we should put a link. There was a link shared by Andres in the Slack channel. I'll put that in the notes here just in case folks want to read that. They had some really interesting descriptions of what they're doing. One of the few folks I've seen do actual end-to-end supply chain security. They're creating attestations for everything. They are verifying them in multiple places. They ran into what sounds like pretty much all of the issues with policies that we're trying to solve with the policy framework stuff. So it's a good lead into that. But one of the things that is, I think, obvious from the article is that they had a team of people dedicated to building this out. Like this was not an easy thing. They did not use any existing tools to be able to do this. Um, the way they described um, starting this with just link attestations before the new attestation framework makes me think that they started this before Witness and Archivista existed and some of the other more recent tooling, which is hard. It would be very hard to get them to switch if they've built all of their own custom tooling. But also, I would really appreciate any feedback from folks here from that have done this, like would the tooling that does exist today help you to solve these problems? If like, would you consider adopting them, sort of thing? Also, if this would be a great set of people to do a talk at KubeCon, if we could actually get a hold of someone. They're willing to speak publicly about it in their blog post, so I think that would be maybe an indication that they would speak publicly at KubeCon. Um, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. They were looking, they had salsa build provenance. They said specifically that they added their own custom fields to that as well, which I'm pretty sure is a part of the allowed according to the specification. But also, I think a thing many of us here recognized early on is that like you want a lot more information than just what a salsa build provenance may have. And so for them to be able to add their own custom fields and find utility in that, I think confirms some of those things. VSAs were also another thing that they're looking at adopting. And then they did mention tough as a thing they haven't done yet, but they want to do. They're signing everything with PGP keys. They don't have a good way of distributing keys. I was surprised to not see any reference to signing things with Sigstore potentially instead of you still using PGP keys distributed through Tough. But at least using tough is better than manually trying to determine which keys you should trust where. So yeah, I don't know if other folks, yeah, VSAs or SVAs. I don't know if other folks had a chance to read through it. If you had any other takeaways, I think, generally it shows there's a lot of work we could do to try and simplify things and make it easier for people to adopt. That, it'd be great to see folks use this that don't have an entire team dedicated to building out a system around it at some point in time in the future. So.
Sorry, I didn't get to raise my hand, but I didn't see any other raised hand. I was really surprised that they did all of this and we just don't know anything from them. Uh, I would really love to see if we can, again, as you say, have them give a talk. But I think we even reach out to see if they can talk to us or add it to the Friends repo. I assume that making such a deployment has a lot of perspective that could help us with, say, the policy framework or like what attestation predicates are like more pressing or more interesting. I don't know what to do here. I kind of feel they had like a spy hanging out in the community meetings, but not disclosing that they were with Palantir. Like what gives? Does anybody know anything about this effort?
I mean, I don't know anything, but this is like the norm. As I just want to say that for people on the call, I think that, for instance, we didn't know that, other than the Docker folks having effectively one conversation about tough, we didn't know that Notary V1 was going to exist until it basically came out. And so I don't think this is like I don't think they've done anything strange or whatever. It would be really, really nice to re-engage with them. And it would also, I hope, like, there's a lot of value from both sides where if there's things that they want that we don't realize, we want to include that so that there's not like, you know, their version of In-toto and our version of In-toto and so on. We'd like to just keep us all moving in the same direction so that the tooling and stuff, if at some point people decide they want to come together or we want to use new tooling that builds on things across these ecosystems, this all works together.
Marcella?
Yeah, I think to Justin's point, one of the questions I would have specifically about what tooling they used or didn't use is, for example, which language they implemented all of this in, right? Because we have been we've been doing a fair amount of work to support different languages from the attestation framework perspective, right, from the libraries. And so if they just went off and re-implemented this in something totally different, like, it'd be good to know.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. When they mentioned PGP, I was like, oh, then they have to be using the Python one. But I guess they could have just done it from scratch, right? Part of me feels tempted to say like, oh, if we had chosen GPL as a license, they would be forced to tell us what they did, right? But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think they have any need whatsoever to be interoperable with anyone else. They're creating a large amount of metadata about their own pieces of software that they're distributing and consumed by their own software distribution system. And I wonder how similar that is to many other folks who would be building these types of systems themselves. I think open source is definitely the place where it makes the most sense to have interoperability because you will, as an organization, be consuming open source from many different ecosystems, likely, if you're large enough. And so having the Python community and the Ruby community and the Golang ecosystem all using the same tooling that can be verified the same way as you ingest it. But then once you start producing your own software and distributing it, you probably, hopefully you've built well, not built your own tough client, but you've built into your client a version of a tough client or in-toto verification type thing, and you're gonna have your own policy probably for your expectations around your software that you're distributing. So, Alan?
Yeah, I think this is not the first time, and I don't think it will be the last time we have, I guess, like a big company implementing Toto and basically just like come out of the blue. I remember last KubeCon I was at, a guy from Thales basically walked up and told us like, hey, like we implemented Toto in like one of our projects, and there were like a bunch of pain points. We'll have to talk to y'all. I sent the email out. They never got back to us. So I don't know. If there's anything we could do on our side to basically make either like starting a conversation easier, or either make it such that like it's really hard to deviate from like, or like basically have more documentation as of like how to set this up, because I don't think this is the first time this happens, and I don't know, like I don't think it will be the last. So I wonder if there's something we could do as a community to improve, or make it easier for folks implementing it to like be open about it. I don't know if anyone has experience with like how hard it is to share this, especially from like a defense contractor side, because Thales and Palantir are both like DoD contractors. So I don't know if they have like way different like requirements, or like how open they can be about their implementations. Although I do know Lockheed that uses In-toto, so I'm not sure how different they are.
I wonder, I gotta touch base on how it went with Sixtor, but I think something that did happen with their like sort of like deployment blog series was that as soon as a couple of companies started talking about it and it became hot to say that you were doing it, a bunch of others were like, me, I'm also doing it. I'm so cool. So maybe we can try to seize that the moment to see who else wants to talk. We already know that, for example, Autodesk is doing it. We know that Datadog has it. There's a there's a bunch of company that we could probably even make a roundup of cool deployments of In-toto now. James?
Just wanted to add my commercial use of like doing security work is that often it's very speculative at first, and you're kind of fixing a real problem that maybe you're embarrassed about and don't want to talk about. So very good reasons for kind of keeping things quiet initially while you figure stuff out, and then you want to be in a good place before you start telling people that you've hardened something, because it means people want to have a look at that. And so I think it's quite natural, and I don't know if there's anything the community can do. But I think like everyone said, this is going to keep happening, and it's not necessarily unexpected or necessarily a bad thing. But people's confidence in these things does grow over time. If they've used it for a while, it's become a bit in their organization, they're confident, and they feel like they've actually made progress with it. So I think it's actually just a good signal that the community is strong and what the community is creating is strong. Even though it'd be nice to get some recognition and some feedback. But still, I think it's actually a good signal in the end.
That actually reminds me, there was this other sort of like a snippet that was shared about Toradex, right? And how it allowed them to effectively do what Spomet should be doing if it were deployed, which I think that was also an interesting sort of like value add, which is like, well, maybe you didn't fix an embarrassing mistake, but it allowed you to like actually achieve better compliance than just like vanilla CIS bumps and stuff like that. I don't know if everybody caught it. I think I could try to give a quick rundown of what it was, but I don't know if it's worth repeating it.
I'd be interested.
So effectively, I think this is out of Aditya, who's like the GitHub person now. Was implementing In-toto, and I think Tough at Toradex, which is this like embedded company that uses Yocto. Apparently they had a third-party review of a product, and somebody just ran like I think it was OpenVAS or Nessus or one of those like SCA tools that effectively said, "Oh, you're running as OpenSSH with a vulnerable, sort of like a CD on it." But they knew they had patched it out, and they had an attestation that showed how they had patched it out. So instead of relying on these tools that effectively do banner grabbing and stuff like that, they could reason about uh, vulnerability not being there, which I think it's a cool value add that would probably save them a lot of overhead and in terms of like compliance and sort of like proving that there's a security process in place. I think that's really cool. Sorry, I'm really tempted to say this, but oh hi, Mark. Uh, it's 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 been a little bit. I'm glad to see you around.
Yeah, I'm back as part of a new company now. I have left Red Hat. I'm now at Datadog. So I'm with James and Trishunk.
No way. Huh. I didn't know that. Oh, you're in good company then.
Yeah, yeah. We're doing some interesting stuff over there.
Yeah. Nice, nice, nice. Uh, cool. Should we move on to the next topic? I'm noticing we're like halfway through the mark, and I think the one of the big items is coming up.
Just in time then.
Awesome. Well, Trishank, Marcella, the floor is yours.
I guess I'll start.
Go ahead, please. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely you should cover the document. I'll actually, should we cover that first and then the I-10 piece? Okay.
Oh, so you're going to cover I-10 now, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I was wondering maybe we should just give an overview of the document that you've been working on with Snahil first, and
Sure.
then cover I-10 just because, yeah, I don't know if everyone here is familiar with like the new or the adjustments to I-10. So yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Okay. So let's so I got this window here. Hopefully everyone can see this. So hi everyone. So Marcella and I gave a talk at OpenSSF Community Day, I think 2 months ago now, 3 months ago, whatever, you get the idea.
Yeah,
But
end
we
of
gave a
June.
talk yeah, June, there we go. So we give a talk at Denver about, so we've got all the cool kids are producing in-toto attestations now, which is great. Some privately, some publicly. Okay, so let's say you have all these private silos together. You want to share and exchange notes. Here's my attestation. Here's your attestation. So Marcella and I were thinking, okay, but what's the next stage? What's the end game? How do we actually harness all of these attestations and actually do something meaningful? You want to extract it. You want to extract meaning and enforce policies with it. You want to meet security and compliance requirements with in-toto. So how do we do that? So the too long didn't read. I don't want to go into all the details of the talk, which you can see later for yourself. But basically, the idea was that previously in Toto V1, as seen in season 1, we had this idea of links and layouts, right? So the easiest analogy is what we call policies today. Links are to policies links are to attestations. What we have attestations today, which I'm sort of jumping ahead, but hopefully you get the idea. We had links back then instead of attestations, and we had something called layouts instead of policies. So links are, so today a link is just yet another attestation, just yet another predicate type. Tells you basically what the inputs and outputs of each steps are, right? And the layout is like this whole thing. This is a picture here, but actually you can turn it into a concrete, precise, formal document that tells you what the rules of your supply chain should be. What are the beginning inputs and what are my end outputs, and how do I trace all the steps in between, how things changed? Feel free, anyone jump in and feel free to correct me if I said anything wrong here. Okay, so today we have attestations because the links were a bit inflexible, and today we've generalized them, and they're much stronger, they're in much better shape today. Like I said, links are just yet another type of attestation. We have the infamous salsa bill provenance now, which is probably the most common type of attestation right now. If I had to make bets, then there are SBOM attestations, there are Sky attestations that Marcella and friends came up with. You get the idea. Okay, but now more attestations, more problems. What do we actually do with them? And also attestations kind of lost a little bit of meaning in that today we have something called subjects. Links used to have something, they used to model inputs and outputs explicitly. But attestations don't. They just have this thing called subjects. So are they inputs? Are they outputs? Are they both? And attestations don't just talk about artifacts like files and this. They could talk about pure data, like your vulnerability scan doesn't actually necessarily produce a new file. It could just produce new data in its attestation saying, well, I found this many medium and critical ones. So how do you check this if these are not artifacts? These are not files. Okay, so anyway, I don't want to go into all the details, but the too long didn't read is a few people, Marcella, John, Alan, and myself have over the past year brainstormed together, and we came up with several high-level ideas about how we think. So just like we have links to attestations, we propose going from layouts in V1 to policies in V2. Again, I don't want to bore everyone with all the technical details here, but please take a look at our talk and take a look at the document here too that we just released. I don't remember, earlier this week. It's like 50% complete, and Santiago is probably gonna hate some changes that I will take personal responsibility for. I split up in V1 we used to call some things artifact rules. I call them filters and connectors now. Not claiming that this is perfect, but maybe it illustrates the concept a bit better. But I don't know. This is why we want to hear from you. And the other important thing about policies, right? The most important thing probably worth to mention. Here's the too long didn't read. So the in-toto policy framework, you can kind of think of it as like a meta framework or XKCD, whatever it is. One standard to rule them all. It doesn't tell you precisely, other than having a specific standard for attestations. It doesn't tell you what language your policies should be written in. It could be JSON, YAML, Rego, whatever, we don't care. You could use your favorite policy engine here. You can use OPA, you can use data log if you want to. You can even use SQL. We've thought about this. So it's very agnostic in the low level details in that sense. But what it says is that as long as you implement some high level ideas like filters and connectors and whatever we end up calling these things, you are conformant to this framework. We think that all policy verifiers, you give it an artifact, you give it an in-toto policy in whatever language, you give it an attestation bundle, and you get an SVA or maybe VAS in Canada only. But everyone can basically talk the same output at the end. So the intermediary may not be the same, but the inputs are the same and the outputs are the same. So I'll stop talking here. Marcella, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some more context to, sorry, can you bring back the diagram you just had?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some more context too to like why we're potentially renaming different types of rules and trying to subset them a bit. We had several conversations with Banaz in Oracle Labs who developed or it was one of the developers of the Macaron policy framework. And they essentially make explicit a lot of the, I think, or a lot of the sort of infrastructure that is actually needed to build kind of this policy framework that Trishank was talking about. And so we're trying to take, perhaps shamelessly, take some of their ideas and actually sort of upstream them into In-toto so that Macaron can continue existing as its own framework, for example, but then still be sort of compliant with an In-toto policy. The other thing I'll mention is the simple verification attestation. That is essentially the generalized SALSA VSA. So Andrew McNamara, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, he and Tom sort of proposed this, and I think the idea is essentially to move towards generic attributes and simplify what the current VSA does. Anyway, I can post a link to the PR here as well. Hence the SVA, VAS, VSA thing. Ah, yes, thank you.
Santiago?
Yeah, go ahead.
So a question that I had is, I mean, this is really cool, and congratulations. This is super exciting. I think it really does settle a major pain point on the project, especially with the new attestation format. I think I think that I'm trying to figure out. So, for example, Macaron exists. There's a bunch of other projects that are like having their own sort of like policy language. What is the what is it that the In-toto project would do? Is the eventual goal to commit to a spec, or is the eventual goal to have like a bespoke sort of like implementation that you can plug in your own, but like this is the one that comes as part of the batteries? Like, what are we committing to here in a sense?
Do you want to
Stella,
go first? Or...
yes. Okay,
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Okay, so let's see. That's a great question. Like, what's the end goal here? So I think there's a few layers to this. One is coming up with this policy framework, really like a sort of meta framework to talk about how you can roll out your own implementation. But there are some standards, right? It's not to say that everyone's free to do completely. It's not like infinite degrees of freedom. So first we come up with a spec. We see whether everyone agrees with the high level concept, the features that everyone thinks this is the minimum set of features we want to contribute. And I think the next thing we want to do is choose one of these implementations. So part of the goal for releasing the framework also is to submit it formally to the SALSA end-to-end request for proposals, which is due at the end of the month. So yeah, too bad, like Marcella said, that Andrew and Tom are not here. They could talk about that more, but we plan to collect all of these implementations and say, hey, look, we're all working together, collaborating under this policy framework. Some have implemented different features, and they may not all be conformant just yet. But here's how you can do salsa end to end if you want to with the policy framework. And then the idea is, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just a good question. I saw a table and everything was question marks. Is that to mean that's the status, or is that to mean we haven't fully filled the table?
We haven't fully filled the table.
Okay, awesome. That's I think better news. But sorry to interrupt.
So I'm planning to organize a meeting with each of the engines here in 2 weeks and see what the status is. And then the idea is that maybe we choose one of this as a reference implementation, and maybe sort of like may not be something you necessarily want in production. You don't know. I mean, maybe we'll improve it to a stage where like this is the canonical open source, but I want to let time figure that out. I don't want us to choose one engine and bless it just yet. That is for the community to decide. But then, I stole this idea of the tough conformance suite, where it's like, doesn't matter what policy you and engines you use, as long as we can translate from one to another and we can test your outputs, we can bless you and say, okay, you look conformant, good to go.
Got it. Okay. Marcella?
Yeah, so ultimately, I mean, the spec is more, I think, moving in the direction of describing kind of a general architecture and general requirements for implementing policy engines rather than specifically saying, use JSON, use CBOR, like that sort of stuff, right? Use Cell or use Rego. Yeah, so this is why I was saying before too, like Macron should ideally also be, one of these policy engines that we can look at and sort of say, here's here's where they're there, and maybe perhaps we can go back to them and say, you might want to think of adding this piece. Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say I agree with all of this, and I think this is really exciting, a good direction. I think that there's as far as the end goal, whether or not we get all the way there, just having described the security properties of doing policies in different ways is really valuable, because I think there's a lot of people who maybe going out and building their own system and say, well, I want to do substitution of properties inside of a policy, or I want to have composable policies, and they're not thinking, or they may miss a particular vulnerability that could occur because of how they're not signing a sub policy, but including them in a parent policy that is signed, or all of these different types of little details that we've all spent, I don't want to say far too much time, an appropriate amount of time thinking about, and being able to share that. I think through this mechanism, we can at least point people to it and say, you should think about these things if you haven't already.
Yeah, it also seems like that this would be super useful for somebody that is looking to implement In-toto in a new enterprise in their projects. Starting off with the properties, the invariants that all of this should provide, and then even just that table, like seeing what options there are and how the different policy verifiers differ.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is all very exciting. Sorry to ask all of these questions. Did I pick up that maybe Macaron was interested in upstreaming some of their stuff to us? Is that a pathway forward, or did I just imagine things?
No, not code-wise. What I meant more was we want to sort of adopt some of their concepts,
Okay.
viewing us sort of as upstream here, in quotes.
Okay, so like a idea upstreaming.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Is there anything else we should talk about it? About this? Noticing we have 15 minutes and a full agenda, so we probably want to do a quick.
I just want to say one thing, which is that I would strongly encourage someone to come to a tag security meeting and do a 5 to 10 minute, like, this is what's new and different here, just so that more people in the community can understand.
Okay. Actually, Jean, do you mind if I fast forward Marco's topic because yeah.
I also just had one more question on the policy framework, but what the next steps for that are.
Oh yeah, I'll try to quickly answer this, Marcella, if you don't mind. So the next steps are September 30th is the due date for Salsa end-to-end RFP. So we want to get this in a decent enough shape where we can send this there along with at least one implementation and say, hey, look, this is how stuff would work in our framework. What do you think? And then we'll take it from there.
And then this would make its way to In-toto as V2.
That is the plan. But we want community feedback here. We want community consensus. This is not something that we want to just like jam in here, take it or leave it. No. We want your feedback. So please leave us all the comments you want.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would assume that with something like this, we may want to tag a 2.0 sort of a major bump. Now that we have both new attestations and new policy language. Marco, I want to move you forward just to quickly address this.
Sure.
I think it's
yeah. I just had just a very quick note. I sent a PR, and I was just looking for reviews on it. It's linked in the notes.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I think it's on the attestation repo. I was looking at it earlier, so we probably could get some eyes in there. I don't know the context, so I don't want to say much about it. But I think we have a bunch of attestation folks in here too. I don't know if there's anything to mention there.
I was looking at the PR just for a moment. So essentially what you're proposing is to relax the requirement of what the payload type should be in the envelope.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Specifically to allow specifying the predicate that's stored in the envelope for two reasons. First, to make it easier for consumption to consume But also there is this is already possible when like the spec already says that you can do this for when storing attestations or when storing envelopes in storage and setting the media type there. So I guess it would be to make that more consistent.
Yeah. I see. Is there anything, maybe this is a question for DISI folks here. Is there anything kind of stopping us from authenticating, because the payload type is authenticated in DISI. So is there anything essentially stopping us or making that impossible to have a longer payload type?
I don't believe that's the case. I think so. As far as I understand this, it's just instead of the MIME type being opaque, it also includes some sort of like file name, and what changes is just the length, and that now you have a longer if statement, right? Like I wouldn't even want to call it increases cyclomatic complexity. I think that's perfectly fine on the DC layer. I think it's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, it's potentially a file name or potentially just like a predicate name, whatever that is. I think that's still something. I think Marco, you had something in there about predicate types that aren't in the repo, right?
Yeah, I think that's one area that's still not super clear how we'll handle that. Because I think, I mean, I would have to page it back in, but in some cases they're using the file name, and in other cases it's using the predicate name, or there may be a difference there, and that doesn't like transfer over to predicates that aren't defined there in the repo. So I'm not sure if that's like if we should block on that or not. I guess I'd be looking for opinions there as well.
So and maybe I missed it. So you say that this is already happening in the wild anyway, right?
So not in the payload type in the DISI, but the spec already says that the when setting the MIME type in storage for attestations, you can use like a predicate specific MIME type.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Sorry, John, Marcella.
So I don't have any opinions about the way the spec is, but from a witness perspective, with this, everything would end up being just a attestation collection as the predicate type, because that's the one predicate type we use to wrap all the others. But for the usability perspective, when we store them in Archivista, then that gives us the capability of querying across many different properties of the attestation itself. And so I'd be curious, and I don't know if we have time today, to understand better the intended use case of this maybe, and how it's what and we don't document this probably very well in many places of like what are the implications, what's like just to understand the use case better of how it eases adoption in some way or enables some new functionality. Marcella?
Oh, I'll just say what I was typing out. The spec currently assumes that the predicate MIME type is, I guess, not authenticated in storage. And I'm trying to remember if there's a reason why back then when we sort of defined these storage requirements, we didn't just also put it in the payload. Because, I mean, thinking about it now, there's no reason not to, I don't think. The other thing I'll say about the file names, I mean, I think the attestation framework spec now does require the predicate name and the actual predicate spec file name to match, so that we can have a little more determinism there. But I still agree. I think perhaps the recommendation for predicates that are not tracked in the repo is to just default back to the sort of opaque one, right? But ultimately, I mean, I think our stance is pretty commonly that it's up to the policy verifier to decide what is and isn't acceptable. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's the approach I took in the PR to continue allowing the default opaque MIME type. And yeah, I guess I could respond to that second point as well, but I don't know if we have time or we want to move on.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the speedrunning 3 topics. Although I think those are short. I think we can continue the conversation on the PR. But now that we have more context, I think it'll be easier to engage and move this forward.
Sounds good.
John, do you want to talk about I-13?
So I just didn't see this until just the other day. I think maybe just raising awareness for it. We don't have time to dive into it, and I haven't looked at the details of it either. But super interesting idea of storing attestations in Git. I think this came from Git Tough, maybe as a potential use case. So that's very interesting. The KubeCon, I guess I was just wanted to see quickly if there is something being organized by CNCF for the 10-year stuff, or if we should try to further plan something outside of the scope of that, a party or something like that. So let me know. We can follow up with the folks who know more of what CNCF's plans are.
Yeah, I don't think it's fully settled. I think they asked us and they kind of offered a couple of alternatives, but I think we can ask around and just to make something. Yeah, at least a meetup slash group picture, whatever. That'd be nice. Okay, I think we have 3 minutes. Justin, do you want to take the floor?
Yep. So DISI should be its own standalone spec was a discussion. We're going to just move it under the JDF. If you're interested in doing anything with this, let me know. I do have a meeting in 2 hours with somebody who might help to make a nice website for it, but you're probably going to see a bunch of random little requests and discussions related to minor DISI cleanup in that process, but hopefully it'll be effectively zero pain.
I'm very interested from the perspective of trying to get the Dizzy extensions into the official spec, because I think they're still in the development branch. They're not a part of something that has been officially released yet. So
I will say that my goal here isn't to improve DISI, other than to improve DISI's sort of acceptance as a real spec. So anything else like that would be done by folks on like the DISI steering committee, which would be elected as part of this process. And I'm not claiming that I would be on that steering committee necessarily. So that's something to bring up with them. I'm just trying to help.
Yeah, I imagine this should also be part of a larger conversation of like standardizing all of this related supply chain security tools. Maybe having
Yeah, I mean, I did also push the CNCF to further do the JDF standardization so that we could get TUF and In-toto to be JDF standards. But the DISI thing is an easy thing for us to do and prod things along. So.
yeah, I think a family of standards and starting with this, it makes sense. I think, yeah, if you'd like to help push this forward, we could also use, yeah, like just knowing if anybody's interested in participating and such, that'd be useful. We can, Cool. Okay. Well, we are at a minute. We made it. Is there any other business? Oh, it's 12 on my clock. No other business. I'm kidding. Is there any other business? Cool. Okay, I'll take that as a no. It was great seeing everybody. I think next time we'll see each other's in October, which is also with the KubeCon around the corner and stuff like that, right? So have a nice, at least for us, start of classes and everything. I don't know what it means in industry, and I'll be seeing everybody around.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.